A sneaky good slate of Week 10 games in the SEC. Who is on upset alert? Chris Marler will join us to discuss. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. We'll run through the slate of SEC games here in Week 10. Only 4 or 5 games left for much of the SEC. It's a little depressing. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And hey, a reminder, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Welcome in our special guest. Chris Marler joins us every week to preview the week in the SEC. Marler, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. It's an odd week because there's not a single ranked matchup for the first time in the SEC all year. But there's some good games. It's weird because we don't get a marquee matchup like that, but we get several rivalry games, trophy games, nicknames, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I was, we still have the streak going of an SEC team has been upset each week. And I had somebody tell me, I did a radio show yesterday, and they were like, yeah, I mean, A&M upsetting LSU. I said, brother, A&M was favored. He goes, no, but it was the rankings. I'm like, dude, we don't go by rankings. We go by.
That's how they built Vegas.
We go by Vegas. And yes, Vegas had Kentucky as the home favorite over Auburn, and Auburn went in there and got the win. So yet another upset in the Southeastern Conference. So, Marla, let's dive into it because we're going to spend probably about 20 minutes of the show talking Maine, Oklahoma. So we want to make sure we have plenty of time to get into that one. Just kidding. But let's dive into it. 11 a.m. Central on ESPN is number 19 Ole Miss at 5-3 Arkansas. Ole Miss is an 8-point favorite now at FanDuel. This line was 7.5. It's moving in the way of Ole Miss. Trey Harris, wide receiver for Ole Miss, is expected back. Nothing exudes this rivalry more, Marler, than the fact that the last 14 meetings are split 7 games apiece.
It is such a weird game. I was saying to somebody the other day, I was like, I feel like if I would have been asked about this game 3 weeks ago, I would have answered with so much more confidence about what I know about each team. I would have been completely wrong, but I feel like I somehow know even less now, 3 weeks later. It's a game where Ole Miss is favored by a touchdown. They should be favored. I know Arkansas is coming off, one of their best games of the year offensively, especially with Taylor Green against a really bad Mississippi State team. But you start looking at the numbers, man. You said it's 7-7 in the last 14 games.
Yeah, that's
in Fayetteville. Ole Miss is 1-8.
Wow.
And I think that 3 of the last 4 of those losses, only one's been by single digits. 3 of the last 4, Ole Miss has been ranked in the top 15. For whatever reason, as soon as they get to Fayetteville, something horrible goes completely wrong for Ole Miss. So it's a weird one to bet.
It is. And what's crazy, I didn't realize this. Do you know, Diego Pavia leads the conference in total yards. So that's passing yards and rushing yards combined. Mm-hmm. Taylor Green is the only one behind him in total yardage. So, you have a mobile quarterback combined with the passing yards. Now, Jackson Dart, I mean, he's on pace to set the school record for passing yards in a single season. So yeah, he's doing it with just his arm, really. But yeah, I mean, look, it's funny how you mentioned 2 weeks ago, Ole Miss is on their bye, coming off of a tough, crushing road loss against LSU. And then the next week, Arkansas gets their brains beat in by LSU at home. So you're like, if I was just looking at this game, I'd be like, oh, well, this is going to be the get-right game for Ole Miss. But we see Ole Miss last week trailing at home at halftime to Oklahoma. And it's like Oklahoma or Ole Miss, you would think you'd come out with some urgency knowing what's on the line here. You got to win out to get to a playoff.
Yeah, I will tell you this, that when we put out our bets last week for the website for Big Picks Energy, I was all in on Ole Miss. Score first, win the first quarter, win the first half. I think they were outscoring their opponents in the season 134, 136. They were plus 136 in first half scoring margin all season long. And they find themselves trailing at the half against what's been one of the worst offenses in the SEC. So coming off a bye week, it was disappointing to see that from Kiffin, but they obviously did enough to win. I would not touch this game from a betting standpoint because the other part of it, you kind of want to lean into taking the over because of what you know about each offense and each quarterback and each play caller. But the defenses are also really, really good.
Yeah. No, it's and by the way, Chris Paul, who was a really good player at Arkansas, now at Ole Miss, so a little bit of a rivalry there against his former squad. When you look at Arkansas's schedule, Marler, they still have Louisiana Tech, so that's going to be their 6th win, right? I mean, that's going to get them 6-6 at least and get to a bowl win. But Ole Miss, Texas, and Mizzou, I mean, you pull off an upset here, you're talking 7-5. I mean, maybe even 8. 8 wins could be on the table if you win at Mizzou. So
they can beat Mizzou.
Yeah, so this turns into a season for, that we literally came into the season saying Sam Pittman is on the hottest of hot seats to suddenly 6 wins, his job safe. 8 wins, you're throwing him a parade going, bro, let's get a good recruiting class. And suddenly the sky's pointing, arrow pointed upward. I know our buddy John Neighbor seems to think that Sam Pittman could just hang it up, at the end of the year. But the flip side is Ole Miss, if they lose this one, I mean, that's 3 losses already on November, the first weekend of November for Lane Kiffin. And him being this hot name that keeps coming up for all big jobs, like, do people start to look at it and go, this was Lane's best team? And if he's going to lose 3-4 games with, that's really crushing.
I mean, honestly, I don't think it would make anyone shy away from still trying to hire him. I think that would even speed up the process more, because if there's one thing we've learned from Lane Kiffin throughout his career, no matter how much he's grown up and matured in some parts of it, he doesn't really, when things get tough and he has to be the one that is acknowledging like the blame and like pointing the finger at himself, he doesn't really do a good job of staying around. I said that after the LSU game, that the biggest thing that would the biggest hurdle he was going to have to climb and get over the rest of the season was doing something he hadn't done before, which is stay committed, not flirting with, leaving somewhere. I mean, like, listen, we talk about all the time how kids are in the portal and they, now they can redshirt for 4 games and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he's a grown kid. Every single time he has an opportunity to at least flirt with the option and make you like, he makes sure to take that opportunity. I don't think he's going to leave necessarily. They look like they're headed for 9-3 either way. But yeah, man, it's weird. I'm glad you brought up Neighbors, because my thought on the Arkansas coaching job is I have no concept of how hot the hot seat is on Pittman or what the pulse is at all. Because every time I talk to Neighbors, it's like the sky is falling.
Right. John finds it hard to find success. He's been burned, and there's been some negative things there. I will say too, the other thing on Lane Kiffin, you talk about him being childish at times. How about the other day, he's bitching at his press conference about, LSU and Bama got the night game. It's like, dude, why are you worried about that crap? Like, worry about winning football games. Like, that's where you're
also, the game's not even this week. It's a game 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, let's see. We'll see if they're focused. I don't know, man. I kind of want to lean taking Arkansas in the upset, but it feels like Ole Miss, knowing what's on the line, they take care of business. But I don't know. This game's always weird. Yeah,
I'm going to take Ole Miss. All of the numbers are telling you not to because of the historical stuff and Fayetteville, and I love Sam Pittman, but yeah, I don't think they have enough.
Yeah, you know what? You're going Ole Miss. I'll go Arkansas then. I'll take the Hogs in the upset. How about that? Go Hogs. Cool. The other morning game, 11:45 Central on SEC Network. It is 5-3 Vandy at 3-5 Auburn, and Auburn sitting as a 7.5 point favorite now, over a touchdown favorite. It is a matchup, Marler, of one of the most surprising teams in the SEC versus one of the most disappointing teams in the SEC. Jarquez Hunter finally got going last week. It took him like half the season to figure out, this is our best player.
It took him 4 years.
We're supposed to get him the football. So
it's only the second time he's ever had 20 plus carries in a game in 45 career games.
Yeah, to me, just feed Jarquez. Stop trying to throw it all over the field with Peyton Thorne, who we know is not very good. But if you play ball control, you protect the football, you don't throw it into dangerous spots, Auburn can pull off the upset. And just think of the dynamic here, Marler. You get Louisiana Monroe after this if you're Auburn. A win this week would be your 4th win. A win over ULM would be your 5th win. And then you're looking to play spoiler. You pull off an upset down the stretch, and that's your 6th win. You get to bowl eligibility. So as dire as stuff looks right now for Auburn, this thing could start to maybe get back to some kind of level of, I don't know, mediocrity.
Oh, this is the Auburn special, man. This is the blueprint to the Auburn offseason, because they will win this weekend. I think they can beat A&M. They're playing Bama in Tuscaloosa, which traditionally they have not done well there. But I think they can get to bowl eligibility. And if they do, they will be delusional enough because of the way the season finished to think like, you know what, we're headed in the right direction. I think the thing that is starting to really, really become evident, and there's only so much longer it can go unnoticed by everyone, which is you brought up Jarquez Hunter. I tell you what, with the addition of the run game, Peyton Thorne's numbers, he went 20 of 26. He had his most accurate game as a passer the entire season. So those two things complement each other very well. And then every single time now that you see something like that happen, you see Peyton Thorne have a good game or whatever, every time you get to the press conference, it makes Hugh and everything he's saying seem less and less credible. Because why, like you said, like they finally figured out he's the best player. How is it taking him this long to figure that out? You don't have a bunch of good players.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy too. Auburn has won all 9 meetings in this series at home, but Vandy has 9 current players and coaches who were part of that New Mexico State win at Jordan-Hare last year. So, look, this is for Diego Pavia to own the state of Alabama. I mean, he already kind of owns it, but this would be the clean sweep. A win over Auburn, win over Hugh Freeze when he was at Liberty. I mean, this Diego Pavia, Hugh will be seeing him in his nightmares for the rest of his career if they lose this one. But Pavia ranks 3rd in the SEC with passing efficiency of 155. You didn't make your pick, but I'm assuming you're going to lean Auburn at home.
Here's the thing. That line, Vegas is begging you to take Vanderbilt, like begging you to. And so against that, and like using my better judgment for once, I think that Auburn wins this game. Listen, Auburn is not a bad football team. They have made some really bad mistakes in key moments all season long. Like, listen, they should have beat Oklahoma. They threw a pick six. They had a lead in the 4th, and they threw a pick 6. They probably could have beaten Cal if they didn't have 6 turnovers or whatever. So there's a path to where they could be doing a lot better. I don't trust Vandy to go win this game strictly because of the line. They're a good team. They can, but I'm taking Auburn.
I think I'm going to take Vandy. I'm taking Vandy in the cover. I'm leaning towards Vandy in the upset because huge underdog gets Bama, 1 outright. 2 touchdown underdog at Kentucky, 1 outright. Home for Ball State, they didn't cover, but that's let me down spot because you're supposed to be Ball State. And then last week against Texas, they covered and, made it respectable. If they get that onside kick, my buddy who's a Texas fan said, dude, if they got that onside kick, Diego Pavi's beating Texas.
Without a doubt.
He was convinced they were going to go down and win.
It's been a weird year, too, for home favorites because I think that the numbers, like they're 3-15 against the spread this season, which is like the lowest mark for favorites in the SEC since like 1990. So it would not be crazy if Vanderbilt clinched a bowl berth with a win this weekend. I just think that the line stinks.
All right, coming up next, are we celebrating on Rocky Top? We'll get into that one and some of the other big games here in the SEC coming up next. First, to remind you guys, today's episode is presented to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. And our friends over 5 Hour Energy, look, they know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it is a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and last to leave. We see you. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you're rooting for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. And whether you're prepping for a big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com. It's the number 5hourenergy.com. Shipped nationwide. It's 5 Hour Energy. As we dive back into it with our buddy Chris Marler, he is a host of Locked On Gamecocks. You can also find him at give me all your other places we can find you.
Fourth and Wrong Gamecocks, Fourth and Wrong podcast. Next Run Live, cover Crimson, covering some Bama stuff as well, and then ESPN Baton Rouge with LouisianaSports.net.
I mean, you're everywhere. Can't get enough Marler. It's funny. One week I think we didn't have you, and I got so many complaints from people like, "Where's Marler? We want him."
Wait, really?
I only tune in for him every week.
Were they mad at me?
Then I get about 8 times that of people who hate you. So
fair. That's just my family.
Let's jump back into it. 7:45 Eastern on the SEC Network. It is 3-5 Kentucky at number 7 Tennessee. The Vols sitting at -17.5, and the Vols coming off rested up off an open date. Kentucky, they have dropped 5 of 7 and 3 in a row since that upset of Ole Miss. The Wildcats are ranked number 52 in the country against the run. And we know Dylan Sampson, after having a week off, he wants to get after it after Jarquez Hunter jumped him in the SEC rushing total. So, man, this one, look, Tennessee's defense leads the nation, giving up just 3 plays of 30 yards or more all season.
That's unreal.
And Brock Vandagriff, let's be real, has not been good. Kentucky ranks 103rd in the country in sacks allowed. I don't know if you can name a number big enough for me, Marler. I think this is just going to be a skull dragging.
If you are looking for a bet, like to place a large amount of money on to not necessarily win a bunch back, like something that's like minus 300 odds, Tennessee to score first is a lock, like an absolute lock. Like they have been an absolute cover machine in the first half of games this year and in the last 3 years under Heupel. I think as a head coach all time, he has been one of the best first half, spread covering coaches or teams or whatever it is. But they've also not scored a single point in 3 straight games in the first half. It's like the first time since like 1963. I think they get back on track this weekend. They've had a week off. They're at home. And Kentucky's terrible. Like, they're just terrible. So if it was just Tennessee having an offense like it was a year ago, maybe Kentucky could hang around. But Tennessee's defense might be even better than the offense. So I like Tennessee to win big. I'm with you, man. The number can't get big enough for me not to take it.
Yeah, and offensively for Kentucky, you've got Chip Trainum is out. Gerald Mincey is out, and I had some Tennessee folks saying they really wanted him to play in this one because they wanted to stick it to him, saying, oh, you left Tennessee for Kentucky. But he's been ruled out. And then how about the defense for Kentucky? Ruled out in this one, Derek Jackson is out. J.J. Weaver is out. Max Hairston is out. Darian Henry-Young. I mean, like, the list goes on and on of all these guys. Deion Walker is probable, so there's some good news there. But
yeah,
Kentucky's one strength has been their defense at times, and then you're going to take several starters out. This could get really ugly for Mark Stoops.
Yeah, honestly, man, like it feels like after what happened in the offseason, I'm not going to say he lost the team in the offseason because they obviously played up to what he wanted and what they wanted for goals and stuff like that against Georgia. But ever since then, man, it has been a real bad season. And it's also a team that you thought with like the addition at quarterback, what they had brought, like they returned 6 of their 7 front 7 on defense. And the only guy they got that was new was a former All-American from Georgia. But it has been just a catastrophic failure of a season.
What did you call Vandagriff? Bearded Devin Leary?
Bearded Devin Leary. That's being nice. That's only because I can't fit an entire like CPA accounting reference on the line.
Yeah, it's been rough, man. Whoever the Tennessee or the Kentucky quarterback scouting department, they need to do a little bit better job this offseason, because it was like that first year Will Levis was awesome. Year 2 of Will Levis, he kind of came back down to earth, but you thought it was because they lost the offense coordinator. Last year, Devin Leary comes in from NC State. You're like, oh, he's going to be awesome. He was just okay. And now Brock Vandagriff, the backup, this guy backed up Carson Beck at Georgia. He's going to be awesome, right? And it's been very disappointing. So
very disappointing.
I don't know at what point, as Mark Stoops, you're pointing a finger out at somebody else. You got 3 fingers pointed back at you. Make it too much damn money, Mark Stoops, to be underachieving.
He's
like
making $10 million, right, a year?
Yeah, top 10 highest paid coach, right?
That's unbelievable. Dude, you said that the quarterbacks did pretty well in their first year. Kentucky quarterbacks have led the SEC in interceptions thrown in each of the last 3 seasons.
Well, that's what I said. It was year 1 of Levis was good. Year 2 of Levis, not so good. But hey, look, anything's better than it was my guy Lynn Bowden playing quarterback. Like that was desperate.
When they peaked.
Time. They're like, put a wide receiver at quarterback. We can't find anybody there. 2 quick hitters real quick. 1:30 Central on ESPN Plus. It is 4-4 Maine at 4-4 Oklahoma. There's no line on this game. But Oklahoma's lost 3 straight. They fired their OC. They really need this one, Marler. I mean, they should win, but this will be win number 5. But then they finish the season against ranked opponents Mizzou, LSU, and Bama. To me, Oklahoma's best chance of getting a bowl game, you have to beat Maine, and then you have to beat Missouri, because I don't know if they'll win against LSU or Alabama. They're
not going to a bowl, for one. Playing Maine this late in the year, this might be the most SEC thing about them. They've had a brutal schedule all year, so I'm not going to make fun of them for it. But My goodness, man. It has been, I will say, if you're looking for positives and you're trying to be optimistic, against a very, very good defense again at Ole Miss, they had a season high in completions, a season high in first downs. I think it was the most yards they've had in an SEC game all year. Like, those are positive steps in the right direction because they were so bad under Luttrell. I don't care about this game at all. I'm not going to. I'll look at the box score maybe. The
We've
one thing
already
I
said
hope
this
happens in this game, yeah, I just hope that what do you call it? Jackson Arnold has a get right game and gets better because I kind of feel bad for the kid. So I hope he has a good game.
Yeah. Most famous University of Maine alum. I was just trying to run through it. I haven't
LOB.
really. Yeah, that could be right. I don't even know if that's right, but I would believe it. Yeah, I'm just looking through their page here. They have a bunch of politicians and athletes. They list.
Who?
Okay, they list Lofa Tutupu, who played with the Seahawks. Oh, he started at Maine, then transferred to USC. Okay, so that
Classic
makes sense.
Maine name. Lofa
Yeah.
Tuatupu. Big
Hey,
Samoan
man.
culture in Maine.
Three-time Pro Bowler there. I want to say got to a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. Shout out to him. All right, the other one,
Built by Maine.
3:15 Central on the SEC Network. It is 2-6 UMass at 1-7 Mississippi State. Mississippi State's an 18-point favorite in this one. A team with one. It's got to be the first time a team with one win has been favored by 18 against anybody. But UMass has the nation's 6th-ranked passing defense. I saw Marler, and the 36th best defense overall. That's pretty interesting.
Hold on, that can't be right.
That's what this.
Oh, it
ESPN,
is.
Yeah.
If
Bulldogs
UMass beats Mississippi State.
Jeff Lebby, look, man, you had a tough go, and I was buying into them until they got absolutely shellacked by Arkansas last week at home. But Bulldogs are averaging over 400 yards per game in October, so maybe they get in a shootout. I don't know.
Listen, I don't know what UMass did to deserve this. Like, this is some of the most just miserable scheduling I've ever seen. They've played. It's not been like a murderer's row of SEC teams. But this
they played at home. They got Mizzou to come up to them. Remember, now they're at Mississippi State. Next week they host Liberty, who, by the way, Liberty has come crashing back down to earth. They lost 2 in a row. Everybody thought they were going to go undefeated. And then they're at Georgia on November 23rd. Good luck with that one, UMass.
Why? Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I do like Michael Van Buren. I think he's been playing better. This sounds stupid, and like I'm being way too much of a sunshine pumper for them, but it doesn't feel like they're 1-7, but they definitely are 1-7.
Yeah, it's a rough go. They're the worst team in the SEC this year, hands down. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC. We got 2 big games remaining in the SEC. We'll preview them next with our buddy Chris Marler. First, I want to remind you guys, today's episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel, and get ready to tackle the college action and NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and college football all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And right now, looking at some of the lines, like we gave you, Arkansas, a little bit over a touchdown favorite against Ole Miss. Vandy, a little bit of a touchdown favorite at Auburn. If you like any of those to pull off the upsets, you can bet them straight up over at FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. And like we said, get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we jump back into it with our buddy Chris Marler from the Locked On Gamecocks podcast, and we'll get to the Gamecocks in just a second. But first, Marler, it is 3:30 Eastern on ABC. It is 4-3 Florida versus #2 Georgia in Jacksonville, Georgia, a 14.5-point favorite. Georgia is 52-3 in their last 55 games, and Kirby Smart is 6-2 in the cocktail party rivalry. But Florida and play much better football as of late. Everybody had Billy Napier, dead man walking, and here he is with a record of 4-3, above 500.
So listen up, Florida fans. You're not going to like what I'm going to say, but it's for your own good. you need to stop believing in yourselves. Something my dad said to me when I was very little. One of the worst things I ever heard, but it was so good for my future. Stop believing in yourselves. Stop it. You're going to set yourselves up for failure, just like you did in Tennessee. They left that game in Tennessee as like a 15.5-point underdog. We're never supposed to win that game. Lost, and then we're like, we got to fire Billy Napier. You're going to lose this Saturday because Georgia is a much better program, and that's not, that's not the measuring stick for where you are right now. Okay, let's just be clear about that. Like, for whatever reason in this game specifically, Georgia is a different animal. Like, it's the only team that Kirby Smart hates so much that he will change the identity of how the team plays, like in this game every single time. And what I mean by that is, listen, Kirby Smart and Georgia have won 6 of the last 7 in this game, in this rivalry. They've won those games by 22.3 points per game in the 6 wins. Georgia has, like, for the last several years, not been a great first half starting team, and especially on offense. They kind of play with their food, they sputter, then they get to halftime, they make halftime adjustments, and they come out in the second half, choke out whoever they're playing, win by 20 or 30, move on to next week. Against Florida, in the first half, in those 6 wins, they have outscored Florida 125-20. Florida hasn't scored more than 7 points in the first half against Georgia, except for one time, and that was the 2020 year. In the first quarter of games, Florida has scored 7 total points in the last 6 years. Or sorry, in those 6 losses.
Wow.
They've been held scoreless in 5 of those 6. Georgia, if you're going to bet on it, bet on early in the first half of first quarter. But Georgia is going to smoke Florida, because this is always what the start of the final push to the end of the year is with Kirby. And it's every year, man, same story.
Yeah, look, the other part of it, DJ Lagway has been playing well. Trey Wilson is out for this one. They just lost was it Jason Marshall, their corner for the season. That's not great.
Yeah.
There's a lot going wrong for Florida, but Lagway's a freak, man. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he moves the football. And keep in mind, Carson Beck, what's the number we keep throwing out? 8 interceptions over his last 4 games. Like, if he makes mistakes and they keep giving Florida the ball, look, Florida hung around with Tennessee Tennessee, right?
On the road.
They just made it ugly. So Florida, if they can make this ugly, maybe they hang around. I think Barrett Salih, we did a show yesterday, and he kind of said, like, if they keep it close, like if Florida loses, I don't know, say 30-20, Florida fans, at least you feel like, hey, that's respectable. Now let's go win some of these games down the stretch of our season. And again, I think 6 wins is enough for Napier to keep his job. So
5 should be. I think that I said this in the beginning of the year when they were playing Miami and a couple of those other games. If you're a Florida fan, you wanted that. Like, I always said this back in the day, like if you were playing cards, right? You don't want good cards. You want easy decisions. For Florida, you don't want to lose a game to Miami by 3 points and then kick the can down the road. Like, oh, like, we're so close. Like, you want definitive losses or definitive wins and move on from there. I'm pulling for him. I'm pulling for Florida. I'm pulling for Billy Napier. I'm definitely pulling for DJ Lagway. But it's a true freshman quarterback against a Kirby Smart defense. Like, this is not the spot where you should make your move. Like, you could maybe trip up LSU because they do turn the ball over a lot. Maybe you can beat Ole Miss. Maybe you can beat who else is on that schedule. They're definitely going to beat Florida State. Like, there are spots at the end of the season, but this is not one of them.
Yeah, at Texas will be tough, but home against LSU and home against Ole Miss is their best bet for a 5th win. And then, of course, we feel like they can beat FSU at FSU. In fact, I almost think you must win that game at this point. But yeah, we'll see on that. And again, it's a fun rivalry. Isn't Carson Beck from Jacksonville?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's his. Yeah, here we go. Carson Beck is the 3rd Jacksonville native to start a quarterback in the series in his hometown. So that'll be a fun one. The other one, Marler, the one that you've been talking all week about, 7:30 Eastern on ABC. It is number 10 Texas A&M at 4-3 South Carolina. The Aggies around a field goal favorite right now. Aggies last undefeated team in SEC play. A nice second half rally against LSU last week to remain undefeated in conference play. But South Carolina, a much improved football team, and they've been sitting around waiting and getting ready for this one. Night game at Williams-Brice. Sandstorm's going to be pumping. I'm sure the light show will be going. And I don't know. I just feel a little bit better about this offense, Marler, with Lenore Sellers, and we'll see if Rocket Sanders plays and how healthy and all this. But like, somebody was telling me today, like, offensive line's an issue. Offensive line's been an issue the last few years with Spencer Rattler there. So like, I don't know. I just feel like this is setting up. This is going to be a close game. It feels like.
Yeah, honestly, like I wish that everyone would stop talking about it, about how big of a trap game it is and how South Carolina can pull the upset. And it's a trendy upset pick. It's a 3-point spread. Like Vegas came right out as soon as they won that game against LSU, and it was a 3-point spread. Now there is something to be said from like the emotional win that they had a week ago, and how crazy that atmosphere was, and the way they did it, all that kind of stuff. But what concerns me most about South Carolina in this game, we'll start there, is we've seen this scenario before this season. Like they had a bye week before Ole Miss. Ole Miss came to town, and there was a home game in Willie B. You had a lot of extra juice going into that game because of Juice Wells, and you took yourself out of that game within the first 10 minutes, and it was over. So hopefully Dowell Loggins and Shane Beamer have learned a lesson from that, and they don't repeat that. This sounds crazy. I almost wish this game was on the road because Shane Beamer and them have played so much better on the road this season. And then the other thing is this: the offensive line is an issue because what it's led to is like strip sacks and fumbles and just really bad lack of like situational awareness at times for Lenore Sellers. He's played better. Like he's played like his two most accurate games, the last 2 games out against Oklahoma and Bama. So they have improved. But like, by the way, it's not like A&M is like, knocking, like beating down the door or in the top 10 nationally for sacks per game. Like that's not what they do. They just have a really good front four that's constantly in the backfield. They got to figure out a way to make them play on their heels a little bit, like stretch them out like on the back end and all that. I don't know. Like I'm very concerned because you have to win the turnover battle. That's not something that Carolina has done a ton this year against like great teams.
Well, they're getting turnovers. They've gotten 16 turnovers on their opponents this year. That's 3rd in the SEC and the 12th in the nation. It's just winning the turnover battle. They're turning it over as they're getting the turnovers.
They've led the SEC under Clayton White. They've had the most turnovers in the last, like since the start of 2021, more than any other team in the entire conference. Here's the thing. Is that the cat? Right. There you go. Here's the thing. You're right, because like what they end up doing is shooting themselves in the foot and also turning the ball over and giving the ball right back. And it's usually in a really, really bad spot, like deep in their own end zone, or like when they have momentum. They did it against LSU, right? Like they had momentum in that game. So there's not going to be an element of surprise at quarterback for A&M this week. I think that they're going to be one-dimensional.
Who do they start?
Reed.
Okay. I mean, they talked.
I hope they start Wegman.
The whole reason they went back to Wegman when he got healthy was they said he's the better true passer. Because Marcel Reed, remember, struggled to move the ball against Bowling Green. They barely, they won that game by like 1 score.
Yeah, they did against Arkansas too. They've been outgained in wins in each of their last 3 games: Mississippi State, Arkansas, and LSU. They have not won in a beauty pageant except for the Missouri game, and I don't think Missouri's that great. But here's the other part of it too. They run the ball on like 63.7% of their plays. Like that is their identity. They're going to try to run the football, and that's like probably the best way to try and beat the South Carolina defense because they're so good in the secondary there. If they win the turnover battle, you brought it up, and it's very cliche, but Shane Beamer and South Carolina, they are 20-6 when he is even or wins the turnover battle under Beamer since he's been there. When they lose the turnover battle, they're 3-15. It is as simple as that.
Wow. Well, it's in that front. I mean, Kyle Kennard is. I mean, I'm seeing mock drafts that have him as a back end of the first rounder now. Dylan Stewart is a freak of a freshman who's only going to get better over the next couple of years. Like, if they start Marcel Reed, I think South Carolina's going to have an answer on slowing down the run. Mm-hmm. And if it's Connor Wegman, good luck with Nick Emanwari and all those guys in the secondary because they've been awesome. Emanwari just had 2 picks and a pick 6 against Oklahoma. So I don't know, man. You said this might be better for South Carolina on the road. I think home game at night because you think about it, the home loss to LSU. Was a noon game. The home loss to Ole Miss was a noon game, right? Night game. This is that same exact spot Marler 2 years ago they beat Tennessee in.
Yeah, and that Tennessee team I think was better than this A&M team. I'm still not bought in on A&M.
At the risk of sounding like a hater, like they great win last week, but like still, I had a buddy who does betting odds at one of the books in Vegas said if LSU hosted A&M this week, LSU would be a touchdown favorite at home. Like, so
all they had
it's
to
not
do is
that
not
you were
turn the
better
ball
than them.
over
You
3
pulled it
times
off.
in one half. That's it. Like it was, I mean, listen, all 3 of those turnovers were inside of LSU territory. The last one was even like, I still can't wrap my head around it. Just like a 4-yard dump off to the defensive lineman. And I'm not saying that Lenore Sellers hasn't done that at times this year, but like if they start Wegman and South Carolina can build a lead, I think that would be the best case scenario where I don't think they'll give it up, because the home crowd is going to be rocking. It is going to be very, very loud. And I think they fully believe they can win this game. And here's the thing. Can you get 21? Because I don't know if A&M can score over 20 unless they're given, the ball deep in South Carolina's territory.
And let me give A&M a little credit. Look,
no,
just win, right? You can win ugly, just win. They've been doing that. So give them credit. But it did, look, the schedule makers did them some favors, right? They avoid Bama. They avoid a lot of the good teams. And the ranked teams that they had, Notre Dame, they got at home. They lost that one. Mizzou, they got at home, obliterated them. LSU, they got at home. And they're going to get Texas at home. So they did do them a little bit of favors. This could be considered, this and Auburn are their rough road games, quote unquote, but they are potential pitfalls. If they don't play their A game, they'll lose at South Carolina, and they can lose at Jordan-Hare, where weird crap always seems to happen. So we'll see when we get to that one. But quick prediction, you going Carolina or A&M?
My brain and head is telling me to pick A&M just because I keep having this recurring thought of Sellers getting blindsided. Josiah Thompson has just not been a great left tackle so far as a true freshman. I'm going to take the home team and take South Carolina, but I think it's a low-scoring, like back-and-forth battle for sure. More than anything, man, I just hope that it is not a repeat of that Ole Miss game.
All right, I'll go Mike Elko, and they'll keep this train rolling. And Aggies get to Atlanta. Jimbo Fisher couldn't do it. Elko does in year 1. That'll be crazy. On the way out, Marler, give me your favorite Halloween candy.
Oh, Reese's.
Okay. The cups or the pieces?
You know what's weird is that anytime they come out with like the special, like it's like an egg, if it's a Christmas tree, if it's a pumpkin, those always taste better for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Now, did you say Reese's Pieces? Who are they still making those?
Yes.
That is like when people like want to drink non-alcoholic beer. Like if you're gonna do it, just do it.
Yeah. How about this? I don't eat peanut butter, but I'll eat Reese's. Weird.
Why don't you eat peanut butter?
Just
more of a jelly guy?
Yeah, we'd eat jelly sandwiches in the trailer park where I grew up.
Oh my God, I thought you were being serious. That sounds a lot like my family growing up. So
I didn't. Kit Kat is my go-to. All right, that's good for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Hey, for your second listen, check out Chris Marler, who does Locked On Gamecocks. He's got you fully covered with this Gamecocks A&M coverage, and he'll either be happy or sad come Monday morning. And then, of course, some big games to preview next week. LSU, Alabama. I'll be at that game.
Are you going?
Yeah, I'll be there for that one. Yeah, so I was at A&M LSU this past week. Next week, I'll be at LSU Bama. And then the week after, I'll be at Texas, Kentucky. So starting to get out there and do a little tour. Have you been to any games this year?
No. I was going to go to LSU Bama because it's LSU Bama and then Falcons Saints the next day. But I don't know. It's just I don't think I'm going to do it.
Yeah, Falcons Saints. Stay home. Don't waste your money. That's going to be
I've never been.
The Superdome's not going to be very festive with how bad they are right now. So, hey, but you might see Spencer Rattler if Derek Carr doesn't get back soon. So,
yeah, that's worth the trip.
On that note, we'll talk to you guys on Monday with our winners and losers of the SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day.